Hey there, Aves. This video is just for you. The technology is coming easier than I thought it would. I'm usually not a tech person, but things are going well. So I just learned this trick where I can show you things on my computer screen while I'm talking. So let me walk you through the little graph that I think you're alluding to. So what you got is basically this is measuring what we call the business cycles. Either the economy is growing or it is declining. Okay, so that's kind of what this is looking at. So all it's measuring is on this axis, you have GDP. And remember, GDP measures all the things that we make. So if we're making things, that's usually a good thing for our economy. If we stop making things, that's usually a bad sign for our economy. And we'll see that on the ups and downs there. The time just simply measures any length of time that you want to measure. So on here, for example, I put years that this could represent. It could also be decades if you want to talk about the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s, 80s, so forth. Whatever time period you want to look at, it could be in a particular year, month by month, so however you want to look at it. But bottom line is pretty simple. As long as GDP is growing, and what that means is that we keep making more things this year than we did last year. As long as GDP is growing, that's what's called the expansion phase of the economy. In other words, the economy is doing well, and of course, that's what we like. At some point, though, we will max out in that particular cycle, and that's called the peak. And then after the peak, we start going down into recession. Okay, and so that's where GDP is declining, and that's a recession. Now, the official definition of recession is 2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP. So 2 quarters, or in other words, if for 6 months straight we start making fewer and fewer things, that becomes an official recession. Okay, so that's essentially when GDP is going down. And then at some point, it will bottom out, and that's what we call the trough. And then eventually we'll come back up into expansion. Okay, and then GDP will grow, and then it'll keep going. So the economy is always in this up and down undulation where it's either growing or it's declining. Now, some would ask, why do we have to decline? Like, why do we have to go into recession? Why can't we always grow? Well, it's kind of like, the economy is not perfect. And just like occasionally we get sick and our immune systems get overwhelmed, well, sometimes the economy gets sick. Sometimes the economy, we make mistakes and a bunch of junk builds up in the economy. And then we go into recession, and that's when it starts declining. Okay, so I hope that helps explain it. Mostly, honestly, it's a definition thing. If GDP is growing, that's our expansion phase. The peak is the topmost point of that cycle. When GDP is declining, recession. Remember, especially 2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP is recession. And then it bottoms out to the trough, and then it comes up again and goes down, and so on and so forth. So hope you're enjoying your time off and all this is making sense. But if you have more questions, please feel free to email or text. I'd be happy to answer. Enjoy.